Welcome back to the show. You're listening to CentralCoastRadio.com. I'm your host, Kyle, and I'd like to talk about a movie that's just come out called Sisu. Well, it's just come out in Australia. It's actually been released in America since May, I believe. And yeah, it was kind of this interesting movie that I heard a lot of people talking about. So I was really looking forward to when it would eventually get a local release. It's kind of this kind of an Inglorious Bastards inspired World War II ultra violent movie, and well, it's set in Finland during the final days of World War II, during the Lapland War. And as part of that, Finland signed an armistice with the USSR dictating that the Finnish forces must disarm and drive the Nazis out. And on their way to up north and to German occupied Norway, the Nazis adopted a scorched earth policy, just destroying everything in their paths: cities, streets, bridges, everything. Now, in the wilderness, removed from this war, a solitary and grizzled old prospector named Atami, played by Jorma Tamila, he mines for gold, and he strikes what I believe is a bonanza. I believe that's the correct term for it. It's a vein of gold so big and rich that it is going to provide for him the rest of his life. Like he won't need any more. He won't need to mine gold anymore. He's managed to strike it rich. Now, as he's transporting this find, this gold, breaks it up, digs it up, and then he is transporting it back to civilization. While he's on his way, he comes face to face and is set upon by a platoon of bloodthirsty Nazis. Um, these Nazis, they know that the war is lost, and really the only thing that's waiting for them in Norway is a noose. Uh, so they actually think that their luck has changed when they come across this guy who's struck it rich, has a bags full of gold, and all they need to do is just take it for themselves, and that's their problems are over. They can flee, uh, they can abscond, and yeah, they won't have to face any repercussions of being Nazis. But these Nazis, they have no idea who they just messed with. Atami is actually an ex-commando, somebody who's described as basically a one-man death squad. And during his time in the war, he refused to die, no matter what his enemy threw at him. And he's a man that he's had everything taken from him. He's lost loved ones. He's lost his wife. Uh, and he refuses to give up anything else. And so, yeah, he's going to basically face off against these Nazis and kind of show them the real meaning of scorched earth. This movie was written and directed by Jelmari Helander, who wrote, I believe, and directed Big Game, Samuel L. Jackson movie, just recently. This was a movie that was kind of came about because of COVID restrictions. It COVID restrictions actually scuttled plans that he had for another film, and so he crafted together this movie, which is set in vast open areas, and it has a relatively low budget and relatively small cast. It's a very Finnish movie, which is inspired by local legends and local history. And the title Sisu itself, that's kind of something as part of the market, as part of the marketing for the movie. It's kind of an untranslatable Finnish word, which basically I sum it up. It basically refers to somebody who has true grit. And I think that's very fitting because Sisu is kind of like a western in some ways, just set against a World War II backdrop. I mean, it has the lonesome hero facing off against despicable thugs and taking them down a peg. The plot of Sisu is it's incredibly simple, despite its kind of stylish title chapter format. Like it has kind of the named chapters at the beginning of certain beats in the story, kind of like a Tarantino movie or something like that. And the movie is very simple despite that. What you might think watching it. Uh, and it quickly just kind of becomes a chase movie of sorts where the predator doesn't quite realize that they're actually the prey until the deadlier foe kind of gets the better of them. Uh, yeah, something that like I said, this movie's been delayed a lot for its Australian release. It came out a few months ago in America, and something that I often saw online when people were talking about this, I kept seeing people refer to it as John Wick meets Inglorious Bastards, and on its face, if you're going to boil it down to its most simple elements, yeah, I can kind of agree with that. But how it's different, it kind of speaks more to the difference in focus here. Uh, Helander, as a writer and director, he isn't really at all interested in presenting the deep characters or intrigue or even really the dialogue, which made Tarantino's epic so brilliant and so memorable to this day. Really, the only thing that this movie has in common, I think, with Inglourious Bastards is Nazi killing. Lots of Nazi killing in as brutal ways as possible. And to be fair, like what else would you want in a movie set like this? Helander, as a writer and director, like he knows what his audience wants. They want Nazi blood, and he serves it up by the bucket load, really. The film, I think, is at its best when it's really just indulging in this sheer madness of it all. As Atami slaughters his enemy in kind of more and more creative and brutal ways, that it kind of reaches kind of parody levels at sometimes, which is fine, but it is still kind of silly at times, and that the story itself is kind of lacking uh, as a result. It really is just about the violence, just about the killing, and there's not much else to it. Like Atami's kind of as a hero, his whole unkillable nature, this whole thing of him being this badass, is really kind of aided more by leaps in logic and kind of Deus Ex Machinas, things that just pop up out of nowhere just to save his ass at the last moment, and the fact that the Nazis don't seem to actually try to kill him when they can, and that they'll open fire on him and he'll manage to deflect the bullets using the pan that he uses for sieving for gold. And it's like, how is that one thing stopping all those bullets? And it's kind of silly in that way. Um, for the fight scenes kind of lack the editing and choreography of the John Wick movies as well. Considering they say it's like a John Wick World War II movie, and I think this might be because they're filming around the kind of the aged lead actors in his 60s. It kind of reminded me more of the types of movies the kind of action movies that you see Liam Neeson doing now, when they try to have him do these big fight scenes now, not the kind of ones that he was doing 15 years ago, if you catch my drift. But again, like the movie, it's a total blast when it's Rambo, the first Rambo First Blood inspiration is really on display. Um, like I've seen a lot of violent movies, and this movie was it did show me quite a few things that I hadn't seen done before. Um, there's a scene in particular where he's hiding under the water. The Nazis go in to I don't want to even spoil it because it is kind of funny, but it's like yeah, I mean who needs scuba tanks and stuff like that when you pretty much could stab your enemy and breathe the oxygen that comes out of the enemy. That was something that was pretty amazing to see. But there is some kind of cheapish CGI that stands out at times. But beyond that, the film it looks and sounds just absolutely incredible. The violence and the gore and the carnage. Uh, it also the war ravaged wastes of Finland. Uh, the cinematography in the movie is just beautiful. And also the sound design by Penu Rikkogen. Uh, that just elevates kind of what this is definitely a low budget feature, but just the sound of the gunfire and tanks and fighter planes and just sounds of the Nazi war machine in a cinema. It really kind of elevated this to something that I would expect to see with a blockbuster movie. Um, yeah, it's a simple but still enjoyable movie that it really does kind of just deliver on its promise of extreme comic style violence and gore. But I really think that it could have featured stronger characters and dialogue. But at the same time, it's still an extremely fun movie. It's exactly the kind of flick that you sit back with your friends, just turn your brain off and just enjoy yourself. It's really that type of a movie. So I'm gonna give this 3 out of 5. It that might seem a bit lower than I don't know what I've seen this movie get really high scores, but I just think that I was a little disappointed by just the just how much the enemies and the characters of this movie kind of blended into each other, and just yeah, I do wish that the characters of this movie were written to stand out just a little bit more. I think it would have really popped for me in that case. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for me, and you're listening to CentralCoastRadio.com, and we will be back right after this.